Long before the world knew the Buddha, there was a prince who lived surrounded by perfection. In the city of Kapilavastu, the young Siddhartha walked marble halls where music floated like perfume and gardens bloomed through every season. His father, King Shuddhodana, believed that if the prince never saw pain, he would never seek another life. So he built 3 palaces, one for summer, one for winter, one for the rains, and ordered that sorrow be hidden from sight. Inside those walls, only youth and laughter were allowed to exist. Servants smiled even when weary, musicians played even when hearts were heavy. Flowers were replaced before they withered, so that nothing old or dying ever touched the prince's eyes. And yet, in the quiet hours of night, Siddhartha felt a restlessness he could not name. He would sit near the window, listening to the wind move through the silk curtains. The moon drifted beyond the hills, and a question stirred in his chest. If this was happiness, why did it feel incomplete? He was gentle, observant, and still. When dancers bowed before him, he often noticed the fatigue behind their painted smiles. When courtiers praised his destiny, he wondered what destiny meant in a world where everything changed. The king celebrated his son's marriage to the lovely Yasodhara and rejoiced when a child was promised to them. But even amid celebration, Siddhartha's gaze wandered beyond the golden gates. He sensed that the palace was not protecting him, it was blinding him. Something waited outside, something vast, real, and alive. He dreamed of roads that vanished into forests, of voices calling across rivers, of faces he had never seen. Each dawn, the dream lingered like mist. He began to understand that peace built upon denial is fragile, and that a life wrapped in comfort can still ache for truth. The prince's awakening had not yet begun, but the seed was there. Deep in the soil of his heart, a quiet awareness that nothing perfect stays perfect for long. Morning broke over Kapilavastu in shades of gold. The prince rose early, his heart heavier than the silks he wore. Beyond the walls, he could hear faint sounds, the murmur of traders, the cry of a baby, the bark of a dog. Those sounds were life itself, and he longed to know them. One morning, Siddhartha approached his charioteer. "Channa, take me beyond the palace," he said quietly. Channa hesitated. The king forbade it. "My lord," Siddhartha smiled, "today let the heart decide where we go." The gates creaked open, and for the first time in his life, the prince breathed the air of the common world. It smelled of dust and smoke and something honest. The streets were full of color vendors shouting, children running, women carrying baskets of grain. He felt joy, the raw pulse of existence. Then, amid the crowd, his eyes caught a trembling figure, an old man, The man's back was bent, his hair white as clouds, his skin drawn tight like paper. Siddhartha turned to Channa. "What has happened to him?" Channa answered. "Age, my lord, it comes for all. For all, for all who live." The prince fell silent. He looked at his own hands smooth, unlined, and saw time waiting within them. A door had opened inside his mind, and the air beyond was cold. A few days later, curiosity pulled him out again. This time the sun blazed fiercely. As they rode through the market, a cry pierced the noise, a man writhing in pain, his body covered in sores. Siddhartha leapt from the chariot, moved by instinct. "Can nothing be done?" he asked. Channa bowed his head. "Sickness comes to every being. None can choose when it visits." The prince watched the man gasp for breath and realized that strength could vanish overnight. The songs in the palace suddenly felt distant, almost cruel. Weeks passed before his third journey. Rain had washed the roads clean, leaving the earth dark and fragrant. They followed the sound of drums and lamentation until they reached a procession. People carried a wooden frame draped in white cloth. On it lay a body, still and cold. Siddhartha's chest tightened. "He is sleeping." Channa shook his head. "He has left this world. It is called death." The prince's voice trembled. "And this too will come to me. Yes, my lord. No one escapes." The truth struck deeper than any sword. He thought of Yasodhara, of their unborn child, of the gardens and laughter behind the palace walls. All of it, every smile, every song would fade. He felt a sorrow so vast it emptied him of words. On the fourth journey, the streets were quiet after rain. From a distance, he saw a lone figure walking barefoot. The man carried a small bowl and nothing else. His robe was torn, his steps steady, his face radiant with peace. "Who is he?" Siddhartha asked. "A monk," said Channa. "He has left behind wealth and desire to seek truth." The prince watched as the monk bowed to a passer-by with gentle grace. Despite hunger and hardship, the man's smile was serene, untouched by the world's storms. That night, Siddhartha could not sleep. The images returned: the old man, the sick man, the corpse, and the monk. He saw them not as separate visions, but as a single teaching. Life ages, suffers, ends, and yet there is a path that leads beyond suffering. He whispered to himself in the darkness, "If all must grow old, fall ill, and then there must also be a way to live without fear." The wind outside carried the scent of rain. Within the palace, the seed of awakening broke open and began to grow. That night, the palace did not sleep. The wind pressed softly against the silk curtains, whispering like a question that refused to rest. Siddhartha sat alone beside a dim lamp, his eyes open but turned inward. The visions from the city returned again and again, the trembling old man, the fevered patient, the still body, and the monk who walked with quiet joy. Each image struck a different chord, yet together they formed one song, the song of life itself. Everything born must age, everything gathered must scatter, everything loved must one day be released. And still, within that endless change, there was something that did not die, the serenity he had seen on the monk's face. He rose and walked through the palace corridors. The marble floors reflected his shadow like a companion of silence. Behind every door, people slept, breathing in fragile peace. He felt tenderness for them and sorrow. He entered the chamber where Yasodhara slept beside their newborn son. The candle burned low, casting a golden halo around mother and child. Yasodhara's hand rested lightly on the baby's chest. Feeling each tiny heartbeat, Siddhartha stood still, afraid to wake them, yet unable to turn away. He whispered, "You are my joy, and yet I cannot keep you from suffering. If I stay, I will grow old and die beside you. If I go, my love will ache. But perhaps I will find a way to end the sorrow that binds us all." A tear slipped down his face. It fell on the floor, small and soundless, like the weight of compassion itself. He knelt beside them and bowed deeply. "This is not farewell," he murmured. "This is a promise. I will seek a path that frees us, not only you and me, but every being who lives and fears and dreams." Outside, a bell rang in the distance, one pure note echoing through the night. It was as though the universe had heard his vow and answered. He stepped out onto the balcony. Below him, the gardens shimmered in silver light. The same flowers that had once pleased him now felt like veils hiding the truth. He could almost hear them whisper, "Let go." He closed his eyes and breathed. With each breath, he felt the pull of two worlds, one of love and comfort, one of truth and freedom. His heart was no longer divided, it was simply awake. When dawn began to break, the first rays of light touched the edge of his robe. The world outside the palace walls was waiting, and in his silence, Siddhartha had already chosen. The dawn came quietly. The air outside the palace carried the scent of jasmine and wet earth. Siddhartha stood by the balcony as light unfolded over the city, soft and golden. He knew this would be the last morning he would see the sun rise from these walls. The palace still slept, musicians silent, guards at ease, servants breathing in their dreams. Only the prince was awake, his heart beating with the rhythm of a single purpose. He walked through the silent corridors, every step echoing a farewell. The doors he passed had once guarded his childhood laughter, his father's pride, his wife's love. Now they were simply doors, reminders of a life that no longer fit the shape of his soul. When he reached the stables, the white horse Kanthaka waited, stamping gently against the stone. The animal lifted his head, recognizing his master, and bowed slightly, as though he too understood. Channa, the faithful charioteer, emerged from the shadows, his face pale in the torchlight. "My lord," Channa whispered. "Is it time?" Siddhartha nodded. "Time to seek what lies beyond birth and death." Channa hesitated, tears glimmering. "Your father will grieve." "Yasodhara, I know," said Siddhartha softly, "but love cannot keep me from truth. I leave not because I do not love them, but because I love them too deeply to let ignorance bind us all." He mounted Kanthaka. The moon still hung low, watching. As the gates opened with a heavy sigh, the city seemed to hold its breath. No guard steered, no bird sang. The world, it seemed, wished him well on his journey. They rode beyond the sleeping streets, through fields bathed in silver mist. The rhythm of the horses' hooves was steady, like a heartbeat echoing in eternity. Siddhartha looked once over his shoulder. Behind him, the towers of the palace faded into shadow, symbols of everything he was leaving behind. "Channa," he said, after a long silence. "Stop here." They dismounted near the edge of the forest. The night was vast and filled with stars. The prince removed his sword, heavy with jewels, and held it for a moment. "This sword once protected what was mine," he said. "Now it must protect no one, for nothing is truly mine." He placed the sword gently on the ground. Then he untied his headdress and loosened his long hair. With calm determination, he accepted the final act of release. The hair fell like a quiet offering to the earth. He removed his royal robes, bright with gold thread, and exchanged them for a simple cloth garment given by a passing hunter. The silk that once symbolized power now lay folded beside the sword. He looked at Channa and smiled. "Return these to my father," he said. "Tell him his son did not leave in anger, but in search of peace." Channa wept openly. "My lord, let me follow you." Siddhartha placed a hand on his shoulder. "Each must find his own way, my friend. Mine leads through solitude." Kanthaka, sensing the parting, let out a mournful cry. The sound broke through the stillness like the shattering of an old dream. Siddhartha leaned close, resting his forehead against the horse's mane. "Thank you, companion of my first freedom," he whispered. "May you rest knowing your steps carried the birth of a new world." He turned toward the forest, barefoot, dressed in rags. He began to walk. Each step sank lightly into the earth, leaving no mark but silence. The wind rose, carrying away the last echo of the palace bells. As dawn spread across the horizon, The prince of the Shakyas disappeared among the trees. What remained behind was only memory, a man who had once been bound by love and luxury, and who now sought truth in the simplest breath. He did not look back again. The path ahead was unknown, but for the first time, he felt free. The forest opened before him like another world. The air was cool and alive with the sound of unseen rivers. Leaves whispered secrets above him. The earth was soft beneath his feet. For the first time, there was no servant walking behind, no guard watching from a distance, no music echoing through the halls, only silence, and within that silence, something vast and tender. He walked until the sun climbed high, until his legs trembled and his body begged for rest. The jeweled sandals were gone, his feet met thorns and stones. The cloth he wore was rough and plain, the wind sharp against his skin, but every breath was his own. He smiled at the ache in his body, for even pain now felt honest. At the edge of a stream, he knelt and cupped the water in his palms. Its coolness stung his tongue, and for a moment he closed his eyes in gratitude. How strange, he thought, that I have tasted every luxury and never felt such peace. The simplest things, water, air, earth, seemed more sacred than gold. When the sun began to set, Siddhartha found a tree with roots spreading like open hands. He sat beneath it, cross-legged, the way he had seen the monk walk grounded, yet open to the sky. The forest grew darker, its voice changing from whispers to breath. He could hear distant jackals calling and the soft rhythm of his own heartbeat. Memories passed before him like drifting clouds. The laughter of Yasodhara, the smile of his father, the cry of his newborn son. They came not as pain, but as reminders of love, love that no longer wished to possess. He understood now, love without clinging is the truest love of all. The moon rose, gentle and full. It painted the forest in silver light. He gazed at it and thought of the old man he had seen, the sick man, the corpse, and the monk. They were all here, in this stillness, life and death, sorrow and peace. Inseparable, he whispered. This world is both fragile and infinite. To be born is to suffer. Yes, but to see suffering clearly is to begin to awaken. He breathed slowly, deeply. With each breath, the boundary between himself and the world began to dissolve. He felt the wind move through his lungs. The stars reflected in his heartbeat. In that moment, he was no longer a prince, nor a seeker, nor a man alone in the forest. He was simply awareness, pure, clear, limitless. When dawn came, the light did not fall upon a prince who had lost everything. It fell upon a human being who had found the beginning of freedom. He opened his eyes to the first light of morning. The birds sang softly. As if greeting a new life, Siddhartha smiled. He did not yet know the full path ahead, the years of wandering, the nights of meditation, the final awakening beneath the Bodhi tree. But he knew this truth was not found in distance or heaven or ritual. It was here, in the seeing, in the breathing, in the heart that dares to understand. He rose and bowed to the earth. Let this journey serve all beings, he said quietly. May my steps bring peace where there is pain, and light where there is blindness. Then, as the sun rose behind him, he walked deeper into the forest. Each step carried the silence of the old path and the light of what was yet to come.